Hey game developers, and welcome back to the C# Fundamentals for Unity course. I'm Bilal from Zenfinity.net, and this one we're going to be talking about arrays. Now, if you're new to this course or programming in general, then check out the playlist in the top right, which holds all of the videos in the series so far. You can hit play all, and it'll play from installing Visual Studio to even up here where we're talking about arrays. So definitely check that out if you're new. But in this one, we're going to be talking about arrays, which are kind of like variables, the topic we talked about in the last episode, but they allow us to store multiple things in just one variable. So the reason for doing this is that we don't want to just have to write lots of different variables, because that gets disorganized and more difficult to do than if we wanted to have an organized collection of data. So for example, if I wanted 3 cats, I could have 3 variables, cat 1, 2, and 3. But with an array, I could just have cats as my variable and store 3 different cats, or say, for example, their cats' names. So to begin, this is actually the code from the last episode where we did some variable work. So what I'm going to do is erase all of this except for this console.read key at the bottom here. And I'm going to delete our variables here. So the first thing that I want to show you about variables is that they have 3 different initializers in C#. Because an array needs to have data inside of it, and it needs to have a size. So what we can do is begin with a static integer array, and to do that we need a left bracket and a right bracket to indicate that multiple things will go in this variable, and then we'll call this numbers, as it's an array of numbers. And note that there's an s at the end because an array is always plural, since arrays carry multiple things. So why don't we go ahead and show you the initializers here. So we'll use the assignment operator, and then we'll write new string of 2. So what this is going to do is actually, oh, sorry, int. That was an error because we were changing the type from int to string. But what this is going to do is create an array where 2 slots, basically, or 2 cells, many different things you could call them, are allocated to this data structure. So we can put 2 numbers inside of this array, right? It has the indices 0 and 1. So the other initializers, before we get too far into all the details about array, are, why don't we just go ahead and show them here. So I'll copy this and I'll comment this out. To comment out, you can just put these 2 slashes at the beginning. I have a hotkey set for it, which I'm not going to cover how to do in this video. So why don't we go ahead and try removing this number, and you can actually physically put the numbers in at the beginning when you're initializing it. So this initializer will actually fill the array in the same declaration or initialization of the array. So I'll go ahead and comment this one out. And the last thing that we can do is kind of a shorthand for that one. We can just copy this 1 and 3 here and completely remove the new int, and it'll do the same exact thing. So saying new int here is just redundant. So why don't we go ahead and start with adding some more numbers to this. So I'll say like 5 and 7. And now we have 4 numbers in an array, right? So in programming, an array will start with the index 0 and then up to, the length of the array minus 1. So in this case, we have the indices 0, 1, 2, and 3 because there are 4 numbers in here. So why don't we go ahead and just try printing the 0th number. So I'll write console write line numbers, and then to access an array we use this bracket notation and put the index within the brackets. So we notice that we can just look here to see what our indices are, right? So 1 is 0, 3 is 1, 5 is 2, 7 is 3, right? So when we access the 0th member, it'll print 1 here. So why don't we go ahead and either click on this start button or hit F5. And once this builds, we can see the number 1 is printed. Perfect. So we just printed the 0th number in the array, right? And notice how this application is still open, and that's because we have this read key here. So it's waiting for me to press a button to close. Okay, so arrays allow us to obviously have all these multiple numbers in them. So we just saw that we can write we can print out the first number in this array. So that's just the beginning of like all the stuff that we can do in here. In the future, we can use iteration loops to actually go through the entirety of the array and check everything that's going on in it. But for now, why don't we go ahead and just check about how do we manipulate an array, right? So let's go ahead and write numbers 0. And we'll set this, we'll assign actually this slot, so this 0th index. We're going to use that index to access that cell and rewrite what integer is actually there. So let's put the number 100 there, okay? And then why don't we go ahead and just write again. Oh. Console.writeLine number 0. So let's see, obviously it should change, and then it should first print the number 1 and then print the number 100, because we are rewriting what's in the array, and that's exactly what we see. So you can immediately just access any member in an array and change what's in there. So there are some difficulties with using a regular array. So it's difficult to allocate more memory to an array. It'll take a lot of iteration. So if we wanted to like add on another slot to an array, what we would have to do is kind of copy the array or create a new array and then write everything over and add a number to the end. And that's kind of something difficult to do. So typically when you're using a primitive array, you want to make sure you know exactly how many numbers that are actually going to be in your array, or you want to know the count of objects that are going to be in your array. And that's why we did something like this. Notice how all these initializers require that we have a set number of things in our array. So in the future, we'll talk about generic lists, which allow us to manipulate them at runtime. But for now, these are pretty much everything that you want to be doing with a primitive array. So you can access members, rewrite them, and change what's inside of them. We could even set it to null, for example. So yeah, that's it. That's everything for this array video. It's actually pretty short because we're going to cover a lot more with arrays in the future. For example, when we cover repetition or iteration, we will see a lot of loops going through arrays, and we'll also talk about it in the future, like I said, with generics. So I will see you in those videos, and thanks a lot for watching. If you want to make your first game even faster, we have a course that's 90% off, and you can check out a sample video which is pulled totally free from the course on YouTube here. So click on that card if you want to check that out. And I also have a free ebook as well on the tools that you need to create your first game, so click on that if you're interested as well, and I will see you in the next video.